Now I don't have to keep an order for change.
There you go. Just hang on. It's working. Now it's working. All right, someone's been playing with that. So if you're just getting here, I'm Pastor Ryan. There's two handouts today. If you grabbed them when you came in. One is the lesson that we're going to kind of sort of follow, but you can take with you also. And the other is a list of resources if you want to dig deeper. And that's up there as well. If you missed a class and want the sheet, it's on the website. You can certainly find it and print it off, but they're also available up here. I have some from the first session and the second if you'd like to take one. We're going to be talking about a couple of documents today. I made some copies that are up here. You can also find those out on the web, but if you'd rather have copies of them, let me know. Or just take these, and if they run out, let me know. I can try to get some more. And then some of the books I used are up here also. So I'll just leave those up there afterward as well. So we ended last time talking about, we began talking about what is Christian nationalism and defining what it is. And we compared it to our faith as Lutherans. And we began to get out of like the theoretical to the practical last week, where we started to look at Project 2025 and the 7 mountains of Christian nationalism. And I was trying to point out to you how this is happening, right? This is happening. And it's not Christian. Party, it's not Christian. Parts isn't. So 2026. I wanted to look at who are Christian nationalists and how can we faithfully respond to Christian. The First Amendment today. We're going to look at a executive order of Donald Trump today, and we're going to look at so let me begin with a word of prayer and we'll get going. Dear Lord, thank you for this time together of learning. Help us understand our own faith and how to live that faith out in the world. In your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen. From PRRI, and I put that on there. You can go check them out if you. Religious affiliation, roughly 2/3 of white evangelists and a majority of Hispanic Protestants also align with these views, which is why Trump did as well as he did. Issues. Next election with Hispanics, but they're conservative. Age with the adherents or sympathizers of Christian nationalism, while those aged 18 to 29 are far more likely to be skeptics or rejectors. Don't get my kids started on Christian nationalism. Republicans are far more compared to higher support exists among Americans with a higher or some college compared with those with a college degree or those with a postgraduate degree. Compared with blue states that have 22%. But even among people with postgraduate degrees, masters or doctorates, there's still 21% of them that identify as supporters or adherents or sympathizers to Christian nationalism. That's 1 out of 5. Still a lot. And in red states, 22%, that's over 1 out of 5, right? That are Christian nationalist adherents or sympathizers. Even in states like Minnesota, which I don't know, no one's calling Minnesota a purple state anymore, are they? Kind of lumped in the blue category now. Page 2, class and structure. Well, often associated with rural lower income areas, studies have shown that adherents cut across class lines with a significant presence of both white collar and blue collar workers. So it's not about how much money you make, right? It's about your religion, really, is what it is. And by the way, there's probably more Christian nationalists in the Twin Cities than there is in greater Minnesota because there's more people in the Twin Cities than there is in greater Minnesota. There's not a lot of people that live in the entire north half of the state. So political alignment, majorities of white evangelical Protestants are high percentages of Republicans. We kind of knew that, right? Race, yeah.
Say a word about the evangelical.
Yeah, oh yeah, Lisa Tye. So you might notice that we are the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and we keep talking about evangelicals, right? Evangelicals are different than the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. They've kind of hijacked the word. Evangelical means to spread the good news. That's all it means, evangelism, right? To spread the good news.
There was no such thing, I mean, that was not supposed to.
In 1985.
That was not nationalism, it wasn't
Yeah.
wasn't.
It was right about the time that the Christian right started rising, but they wouldn't have been a way that we understand it now. So we are the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America because we tell other people about the love of God, but we are not evangelicals like we're talking about in this study. Thanks, Lisa.
So, but in Greek, it's evangelion, which means the good news.
Yeah.
So it's about the good news, and where we get the word angel is angelos, it's from that good news. The angels pronounce the good news. So it's a very beautiful and wonderful word in the Greek sense of it and how it's meant to be, but to get lumped together, it isn't at all, it loses the meaning of it.
I think that evangelism gets lumped in with the Great Commission, and these are Great Commission churches, right? The go and baptize churches. And even though we are evangelical in that we spread the good news, we'd rather love people into the kingdom, right? That we're more comfortable with that. Race and Christian nationalism. Research suggests a strong, consistent connection between white Christian nationalism and attitudes that can be classified as racist, exclusionary, or xenophobic. Studies show that adherents to Christian nationalism, particularly white adherents, frequently conflate American identity with white Christian identity, often viewing racial and ethnic minorities as other. Evangelicalism, from which Christian nationalism has risen, is an almost all white denomination of Christianity. Therefore, they tend to give their preference to white Americans. We're an almost all white church. Yeah. And I'm looking around the room, and I think all of you grew up in an all white family or almost all white family. It's not hard to see there that if everybody there how racism could creep into that, right? In some ways. And sometimes racism is because we don't know anyone different from ourselves. So we're scared. We're scared of what we don't know. We're not scared of what we do know. We're scared of what we don't know. The first time you go to school in kindergarten, you're scared to death. By the fifth day, it's totally fine, right? But we don't know. If you don't know an immigrant, well, you might be afraid of that, right? If you don't know a gay person, you don't understand it. If you don't know a Jewish person, you don't, and if you're surrounded by white people who believe the same as you all the time, then you have a lot of things you don't know, right? So we always, the more educated you are, the less likely you are to be a Christian nationalist, because the more education you have, the more your world grows, your horizons grow. It's not to say you have to go to college, right? But that is a way to grow. And in college, you don't get to sit and express your opinions. You have to back it up with stuff, right? And because that's not how college works. So you have to grow your understanding. You can grow your understanding by reading books. You don't have to go to college, but we want to grow our worldview. I say it somewhere in here, but maybe in what can we do, but understand the other side of things, right? Listen, force yourself, if you only listen to CNN or watch CNN, to watch Fox for a while, right? See how it goes. Or the other way around. So I'm not saying all Christian nationalists are racist, right? There's a tendency toward that, and part of it is because most of them are white. Yes.
You're saying a lot of us, which I did also, grew up in just white families and white neighborhoods. But I wonder how many of us here now have people in their family, mixed race, different, I bet the majority of people do now.
My kids were born on 3 different continents. Key findings on race and Christian nationalism. I think Christian nationalism really came to light after Chancellorsville. Remember when they had the white supremacists there with the tiki torches, and the guy drove the car into the people? I think that's when it really got visible in a really bad way, right? Because people could just overtly see they're connecting Christian nationalism with these white supremacists. But Christian nationalism would not profess to be a white nationalist. It just prefers a way of life that favors white people. So, which is biblical in some way to them. The way it was, right? The way it was. White people used to be by far the majority in the United States, right? And now white people are a minority in the United States. There's more people of color.
And that's what they are.
They're afraid of that, yes. They're afraid of it because it's change. So we'll talk about this. It's called replacement theory. It's coming up in here, but they feel like I'll get to it. Ideological overlap. Research often describes this phenomenon as white Christian nationalism, an ideology that binds American national identity to a particular exclusionary Anglo-Protestant interpretation of Christianity. Not Catholic. We probably would qualify Anglo-Protestant, but we wouldn't qualify because we have women pastors and gay pastors and same-sex marriages in the churches, and we don't read the Bible literally, but at least we're white, but we don't want to be a part of that necessarily. But So second, racist attitudes and beliefs. Adherents are more likely to express anti-immigrant views, hold anti-Muslim sentiments, deny that deny systemic racism is a problem in the US, and support policies that limit the rights of minority groups. So that's when if somebody says to you, I don't see color. It was one of the comedians that was black. It was talking to somebody who said that to him. Well, I don't see color, and he's like, well, how do you stop at a stoplight? So, but if you can't, you don't say you don't see color, because we do, and people of color know you do, right? And they see that you're white. It's okay. We're diverse, right? We're not all the same. We won't judge people because of the color, right? That's a different thing. But we do see color. We definitely see color. Opposition to racial equality. Proponents of this ideology often oppose measures aimed at reducing racial inequality, such as racial justice protests or systemic changes or anything DEI. This is happening. DEI is just about dead. Target got caught in the middle of all of this, right? Because there's no winner. So they feel like they have to get rid of DEI, but then there's other people who understand the value of DEI. And so there's all this stuff is happening. Replacement theory. So 71% of Christian nationalism adherents agree with aspects of the Great Replacement Theory, which posits that immigrants are replacing American cultural and ethnic identity. Which presumes a lot, which is number one, there is an American cultural and ethnic identity that needs to be preserved. Right?
That's why they want women to have more babies. They don't say black babies or short babies, but you know they're gonna do it. They want more white women.
So yes. They're afraid. That's what we're talking about, right? They're afraid that they're going to be replaced
We're treated the way they are treated.
They're losing your place of privilege. White males still have a place of privilege in our society, but not as much of a place of privilege as they did 30 years ago. And today, we'll look 30 years from now, they'll have even less of a place of privilege. As a white male, let's keep in mind that not all white males are alike. And many white males have contributed greatly to good things. So we can't paint with a broad brush, right? And we can't do that with Christian nationalists either. But I don't know when. Part of the reason that men still have an advantage, white men have an advantage, is they started halfway down the track compared to the other people. So they had most likely had more parental support. They never had anyone question them if they went into the store, or follow them around in the store. They, just those systemic kinds of things they didn't have to, they were on the top of, right? We were on the top of. Instead of, we didn't have to, so the starting line for people of color, for women, for minorities, for immigrants, for whoever else that's not a white male, the white males get to start on the 50-yard line, and other people are back incrementally, and then you say go, and then oh, well, the people that started at the goal line never caught up. What happened? They must be lazy.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't fair to begin with, right? So how do we level the playing field? That's what DEI was trying to do, right? Let's get the starting line closer because we want everyone to be successful. Yeah, we want everyone to be successful. At least we do. I do. I want everyone to be successful, right? But in order for everyone to be successful, those that are successful now need to share and need to believe that all people are equal and no one is privileged. Oh, our Constitution says all people are equal, right? I think the Bible tells us to treat all people equally. Two different things. All right. So, like I mentioned before, minorities do not want to go back to the 1950s, right? But white people don't mind that so much. Many of you lived through the 50s. I don't think it was as glorious as we made it out to be. I don't think it was for women. I don't think it was for minorities. So, right. So, did anything surprise you in those demographics? No. Yeah.
I just want to reinforce something you said, and that was that we have to be careful not to paint everybody with the same broad brush, because I would venture to guess if we had 5 white Christian nationalists in this room, they would all have a little bit different views from one another.
Yeah.
Probably much greater views than many of us here, but I'm sure there are dramatic and nuanced differences between people that espouse those beliefs as well.
Yeah, I mean, that would be true in our church of people who, or there's some people who just go to abiding Savior, but don't pay much attention to what we actually believe, right? There's a lot of Christian nationalists that might be doing some of the same thing.
Maybe one particular issue that resonates with them, and
Yeah.
they're all in because of that issue.
They're all in because of abortion, or they're all in because of gay marriage, or they're all in because of immigration or something. Or yeah, almost always they're against something. I guess we could look at that. They might say they're for Christian values. Oh no, Christian values could be against people, but that's different. So I was a little surprised that the economic demographics didn't matter much for Christian nationalists. It wasn't like lower income brackets were more likely to be Christian nationalists, because I thought maybe they would feel more threatened, and I think some of them are. Blue collar workers are more threatened by immigration than white collar workers. But a lot of white collar workers are white. So I think there's a lot in those statistics that are happening. I didn't dig into them that deep to know. Not sure I want to, but yes. But that study, I put the website on there, so you can go look at that if you want to further. Key figures in Christian nationalism today. I don't think some of these things will surprise you. These are, whether they want to be or not, leaders in the Christian nationalism movement. Pete Hegseth. You guys is a proud Minnesotan. Did you know that? So he's I don't know. I love it when he tries to quote the Bible. So he has no idea what he's talking about. But he's very much a Christian nationalist. Just yeah, never mind the way he's treated women in the past, but the word Christian should not be on some of these people's mouths. But he's a defense secretary, right? So the Secretary of War, huh? Sorry. Secretary of War. That's we're on the offensive now, not the defensive, right? And but he was a weekend host on Fox before he was Secretary of War, and he he's a Christian nationalist and very much so tries to bring his faith to the podium when he speaks as the Secretary of War. Donald Trump is not a Christian nationalist. He just uses the Christian nationalists to his advantage. And that is why he does what they want him to do, Project 2025. We already talked about this. He got into office. All of Doge was getting rid of the experts so he could put in loyal people. I got rid of the Department of Education. Got all of the things that have been happening with ICE and immigration, those are all a part of Project 2025. And there's much, much more that's happening. So Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, he's the Speaker of the House. These are pretty powerful people. Mike Johnson is very much a Christian nationalist and speaks about his faith often, and but does what I mean, if he controls Congress and Trump controls the executive branch, and the two of them are in lockstep. So that's why these changes can happen. It happens so quickly because there's supposed to be checks and balances, and there's not right now. They're both Christian nationalists. So there's not much to stop them except the Senate. And the only reason the Senate can stop them is because you need 60 votes in the Senate and not just a majority. But if you only needed 51 votes in the Senate, there'd be a lot more changes in this country that would happen pretty rapidly. Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe not so much anymore. I think she sold her house. I read yesterday she sold her house in Georgia. It's probably going to go be a pundit somewhere, I would guess. But Ken Paxton, he is the Attorney General, and now he's running for senator against Tallarico in Texas. That'll be an interesting race. Hasn't been a senator elected from Texas in 40 years, maybe. But James Tallarico is turning some heads. If you have a chance to listen to what he has to say, I think you'll probably agree with him. Because he's a Presbyterian and speaks like one. So he's a mainline Protestant who leads with love, right? Instead of social agendas. And Lauren Baber, she's just crazy. If you've ever listened to her, I mean, Christian nationalists or not, if you listen to what she's just, but I don't know how she got elected, to tell you the truth, but she's a Christian nationalist, unashamed as well. Some of the influential leaders, I'll just let you look at that. Charlie Kirk is probably the only one you know there. Andrew Torba wrote that black book with the red cross that's there. And so those are just some of the leaders, but of the Christian nationalist movement. So there's a Baylor study, and I have copies of it up here, and you can look it up. That didn't copy over a URL very well, but that bottom of page 3 is a URL, which you can't click on because it's a piece of paper. But that you could find this study out there pretty easily. This is from the 2020 election when supposedly Biden beat Trump.
Yeah.
Allegedly,
Yeah.
Biden beat Trump. And 70% of strong Christian nationalists voted for Trump, and 83% of strong rejectors of Christian nationalism voted for Biden. So that's pretty divided in their strength on either side of that. Page 4. All right. Any questions? Before we jump into talking about separation of church and state. So separation of church and state is an American idea. Hadn't really been tried before that. So there must have been a reason that they decided to have a separation of church and state. But the First Amendment of the Constitution says Congress shall now make no law respecting an establishment of religion. That's the Establishment Clause, right? Or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's the Exercise Clause for religion. So no law respecting an establishment of religion, and no law prohibiting the free exercise of religion, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I think every single sentence in that First Amendment is under attack right now. I do. In some systematic way, it's being attacked right now. Because it's really hard to govern with the First Amendment and all these people who disagree with you and tell you so, right? It's just easier to do whatever you want to do. That's the truth. It is, right? That's called authoritarianism, though. If you get rid of the freedom of the speech, no one's holding you accountable any longer, right? If you get rid of the freedom of assembly, then your voice cannot be heard in protests, right? So we have long held the First Amendment, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, as some of the core parts of our country. Freedom of religion is under attack by Christian nationalists because they think we are a Christian nation and our laws should be based on Christian values. But if you were a Muslim, you would feel differently, I think. And you might not have to feel like we should be a Muslim nation that's run by Muslim laws. We should, as we have done for almost 250 years. If you want to be Muslim, be Muslim. If you want to be Christian, be Christian. But don't tell me what I need to do, right? Don't force your religion on me. So the establishment of religion clause of the First Amendment, it prohibits the government from providing some types of support to religion, requiring some separation between church and state, while the free exercise clause prohibits the government from excluding religious individuals from receiving the benefit of public welfare legislation because of their faith, or allowing and even requiring some accommodations of religion. Doesn't sound so bad, does it? You can't exclude people because of their religious beliefs. You can't stop them from freely exercising it. You can't offer government support to any religion in particular over and against another religion. Can't show favoritism. The establishment of religion clause of the First Amendment means that neither a state nor the federal government can set up a church, and neither can pass laws which aid one religion or aid all religions or prefer one religion over another. Neither can force. This is not actually written in the Constitution. This is kind of, and an interpretation of it, like our historical interpretation of it. Neither can force nor influence a person to go to or remain away from church against his will, or force him to profess a belief or disbelief in any religion. No person can be punished for entertaining or professing religious beliefs or disbeliefs, for church attendance or non-attendance. No tax in any amount, large or small, can be levied to support any religious activities or institutions, whatever they may be called or whatever form they may adopt to teach or practice religion. Neither a state nor the federal government can openly or secretly participate in the affairs of any religious organizations or groups, and vice versa. It's a lot, but you get the idea. The separation of church and state is intended not only to protect the government from religious influence, but also to protect religious exercises by preventing the government from intervening in religious affairs. As much as I as a pastor, I can protest, I can use my free speech, I can lobby, I can do everything I can to influence government, right? But government, we don't want a Lutheran government, right? Like Christian government. But Christians can influence the government. They're separate. We'll get into that a little bit too. But I also, as a pastor, don't want the mayor of Mounds View to come in and tell us what we can and can't do in this church and what we can and cannot believe. So
It's said then that we have to have a sign on the front door that says ICE is not welcome here.
and that sign is there not for us, but for our immigrant friends that worship here. And regardless of how you feel about ICE, I don't think anyone should be harassed, hunted down at their place of worship while they're worshiping. So that's why that sign is there. Whether or not it would stop anyone, I don't know. It probably doesn't need to be there anymore. You never know. You never know. I doubt it would have stopped anyone if they really wanted to come in. So the separation of church and state is intended. Oh, sorry. The First Amendment's establishment clause forbids the government from making any law respecting an established religion. Perhaps most obviously, this provision prevents the federal government from establishing an official national religion. So maybe unofficially, we've always been a Christian nation, except we haven't, right? We're just a nation that has Christians and Muslims and Buddhists and Jews and a whole lot of agnostics and atheists as well. So why separation of church and state, right? The First Amendment and freedom of religion. So what is the purpose of having a constitution? Well, my wife is a lawyer. Tommy, you're a lawyer. And what my wife always told me is the Constitution is there to protect the minority from the majority. We have rights, right? We have rights, right? We hear that all the time. I'm a U.S. citizen. I have rights, right? My rights were violated. Whether you have rights, whether you're in the minority or the majority. So the majority can't make Jim Crow laws in the South. They're unconstitutional, right? The majority can't force their will on. They cannot violate the rights of the minority. We do have majority rules, right? In some ways, we're not totally a true democracy, but we don't have majority rules in a way that they can violate the rights of the minority. And so that's what part of the reason the Constitution is there, is to protect the minority from the majority. So why would our forefathers have wanted or needed that First Amendment?
Well, I think a significant number of immigrants to the North America 400 years ago left their native countries because of religious persecution.
So interesting. Yes, Doug is saying a lot of the first people who came to America were leaving Europe because of a religious persecution, right? So they were being persecuted mostly in England because they were not a part of the Church of England. They didn't believe, they believed something different, and therefore they were persecuted. So they came here. Ironically, they're fleeing religious persecution, and Christian nationalists are saying we are a Christian nation because all these Christians came over here. They were all Christian. So we're a Christian nation, right?
Well, that's not true though.
Well, that's what they're saying. The Jamestown, the Puritans, the Pilgrims, they're all Christians. Even Christopher Columbus. I mean, because everyone in Europe was Christian, period, right? Doesn't matter what brand of Christian they were at that point. They were all Christian. Well, it depends on where you define Europe, but there were some Muslims if you got into parts of Spain and beyond in the Mediterranean. But anyway, so that yes, they were fleeing religious persecution. They were fleeing a system where they knew when church and state were together, what dangers there were in that, right? And if I was gonna talk about it in a little bit, but if you study history and you know Henry VIII, he didn't just have a bunch of wives, right? He also broke off from the Pope because he didn't, because his first wife was Spanish. She was the queen. She was the daughter of the Queen of Spain, and they got married, and she didn't have any boys, and he wanted to get divorced, and the Pope said you can't get divorced. And Charles and Henry said, no, I'm gonna get divorced, so I'm leaving the whole church. And then I'm gonna appoint, the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is gonna annul my marriage to Catherine of Aragon, and I'm gonna marry Anne Boleyn. And unfortunately, they didn't give him a boy, but now you're Protestant, right? You can't become Catholic again, because if you become Catholic again, and then my marriage is not annulled. And so, but there were wars over this now after that, right? Wars over whether England was going to be Catholic or Protestant. And eventually they became Protestant under the first Queen Elizabeth. So, but she had to kill Mary, Queen of Scots, who was at Catherine of Aragon. So are they going to be Catholic or Protestant? So anyway, that's what happens when we do church and state, right? That's an example. It's an example. So in England had an official state church, and you didn't deviate from it. You didn't deviate from it. So our forefathers saw that what had happened with that, right? Our forefathers were also mostly not particularly devout Christians. They were Christians, but they were not particularly devout Christians. They weren't thinking like, I'm sure they weren't thinking that there would be Muslims in America. Like they wouldn't have been thinking that, right? Or everyone was Christian, but we're not going to have a Christian, because there's varieties of Christians. In Europe at that point, there were quite a variety of Christians. The Reformation had happened 200 years before that, 250 years before that. So there's a wide variety of Christians. We don't need to pick any particular one. We're going to protect it. So the Constitution, I thought was interesting, protects religion from the state. Like I said, the state can't come in and tell us what we're going to do or practice, or they can't even tell us that we need to have an American flag in the sanctuary, which we do. It used to be back by the door, but then I think it made its way. It's closer now, so I don't know. But there's an American flag and there's a Christian flag in there, both in the sanctuary. But it protects the religion from the state and the state from religion, and that's the part we've been talking about. This protect the state from being taken over by religion, which we've seen. We know bad things can happen. How does Christian nationalism challenge the separation of church and state in the United States? Well, we've talked about that, right? Is it possible to maintain secular government while still respecting religious beliefs and practices? Yes, we've been doing it, right? I mean, we don't like Christian nationalists, but if they want to go to their church on Sunday morning and gather together and worship, that we're not going to stop them. We don't want to stop them. What we want to stop them from doing is forcing their beliefs on other people and infiltrating the highest levels of government with a form of Christianity that's, well, it's not as based in love as we might like. Yeah.
I just heard the radio the other morning, governor of Texas saying the separation of church and state is the biggest lie that's ever been told to us. He's on the commission that the president has put forth. Religion.
Yeah. All right. I think it's in the First Amendment here, but I don't know. But maybe they can get a Supreme Court to read the First Amendments differently, because the Supreme Court reads a lot of things differently. No. All right. So First Amendment is interesting Christian nationalists use the First Amendment to defend their speech. So we're going to see the First Amendment in the next document we'll look at it. They use it to defend their speech, but it's interesting how much it does not go both ways. So it doesn't go both ways. Real quick, German nationalism in the church, Nazism on the rise. Germany is Lutheran and Catholic, but the Lutheran pastors just kind of out of fear, I think, went along with Arianism, went along with the final solution of the anti-Semitism of the Nazis. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who we studied last year, said, no, that's not okay, right? The Jews are my neighbors, my dentist, my psychiatrist, they're why would we want to do this? This isn't right. This isn't Christian. So he stood up to that, started his own church because he believed the church should be the conscience of the state, and the church can't be the conscience of the state if they're together. So the Lutheran Church, together with Nazism, behaved pretty badly and never recovered after, because they made poor decisions in that way. But you can see where Bonhoeffer said the church is the conscience of the state, and so the church is to be speaking to the state, not a part of it, to say, hey, that's not okay, right? That's not okay. Other examples of church and state, the crusade, church and state being together, the Crusades, not good. Colonialism, not good. The Inquisition, these are not highlights of history. Today, the Islamic Theocratic Republic in Iran, that's a church and state together, most definitely, or the Taliban in Afghanistan. Not good things, right? Not good things are coming out of those. And but they're coming from their religious beliefs, right? What is the place of women? Which is a big one in those, especially those Muslim society, but maybe in our Christian ones too, right? We've all seen The Handmaid's Tale, right? That's maybe not. Did anybody watch that? Yeah. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's based on this kind of stuff, right? It's based on nobody standing up and stopping fundamentalists from taking power and creating an authoritarian government based on Christianity. So Executive Order 14202, eradicating anti-Christian bias. I found it interesting that this was issued on February 6, 2025, and Trump was inaugurated on January 20th, 2026. Oh, sorry, that was supposed to be 25. That's not correct. So it was like less than 3 weeks after he took office, one of the first things he wanted to do was eradicating anti-Christian bias. And I saw this at first, I almost laughed. I'm like, what anti-Christian bias? Christians hold all the cards. So I had to look deeper at this and see where it's coming from. It's interesting. So Section 1, I just gave you some of the highlights. The whole thing is over here if anybody wants to grab it and take it home with them and read it or find it online. It's starting now. It's been slow, but it's starting. You'll hear it in the news right now. This task force that's coming together. So it's the policy of the United States and the purpose of this order to protect the religious freedoms of Americans and to end the anti-Christian weaponization of government. I did not know that was happening. The anti-Christian weaponization of government. The founders established a nation in which people were free to practice their faith without fear of discrimination or retaliation by their government. My administration will not tolerate anti-Christian weaponization of government or unlawful conduct targeting Christians. The law protects the freedom of Americans and groups of Americans to practice their faith in peace, and my administration will enforce the law and protect these freedoms. My administration will ensure that any unlawful and improper conduct, policies, or practices that target Christians are identified, terminated, and rectified. I'm a Christian. I'm not feeling attacked. Right? Some parts of this, if you just took the Christian part out of it, sound great, right? You know, my administration will enforce the law and protect religious freedoms. My administration will ensure that any unlawful and improper conduct, policies, or practices that target any religion are identified, terminated, and rectified. That would be fine, wouldn't it? Why Christians specifically? So now we're and so I'm thinking, why, how are Christians being they're being persecuted? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, gay marriage, things they don't like. And then when they speak up and they're like, I don't like gay people. Well, they don't know if they say that, but then we're like, well, you can't say that. That's, not okay to say that. I don't like immigrants. It's not okay to say that. I don't like Jews. It's not okay to say that. And then they get persecuted for it. That's what they're talking about. So they have what some people might consider hateful speech and beliefs based upon their Christianity, which Christianity has no hate, no room for hate. It's based on love. And then they're feeling persecuted because the government is saying, no, you need to have inclusion. You have to, we have gay marriage, right? It's the whole country, gay marriage, it's legal. So that, but if you speak out against it, and abortion beforehand, before it became legal, and some illegal in many states, the pro-life movement being persecuted for those beliefs. No one persecuted them for their beliefs, but it was for their actions. If they were trespassing, if they were, so you can that's what Trump is talking about, is people feeling persecuted for being Christian because their beliefs are not inclusive. The weaponization of government against Christians. Christian nationalists love this, right? They love it. That's why he did it. I got elected and I'm going to reward you with this. To establish the Section 2, the Department of Justice is within the Department of Justice is where this is supposed to be. And then the task force is to review the activities of all executive departments and agencies, including the Department of, listen to this list, the Department of State, the Department of Justice, the FBI, the Department of Labor, the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Education, although that doesn't exist anymore, the Department of Homeland Security, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission over the previous administration. This is all looking backwards at the previous administration's policies and overturning any of them that might be have an anti-Christian bias. It's especially scary, all those big things, but it really jumped out at me that the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is one of the ones being singled out. Yeah. So this is real. This is real. And you can read more about it up here if you want. We got a few minutes left here. So are Christians under attack? And if so, who is attacking them? Well, ultra-right liberals are attacking them. And ultra-right liberals are from Satan. So it is a spiritual warfare that's happening. Ivy League educated elites. Yeah.
I feel like Christianity is under attack by this abomination of Christianity. And what bothers me the most about it is those people that might consider Christianity want nothing to do with this, and it's driving people away from Christianity.
Yeah, it's not very Christ-like. And that's the problem, right? Where is Christ in this? We quote the Old Testament and all the laws and the rules. They love to do that, but it's really hard to find some quotes of Jesus to support what they're doing. Because Jesus always came down to love. Love, love, love. So yeah, Tim, you're right. It is not good for Christianity. And they have the loudest voice right now, but we have the best message. We just need a louder voice. Because love is more powerful, isn't it? Love is more powerful.
Trump, why he's so mad at the Pope.
Well, yeah, and that's yeah, I lifted that out earlier, later in this too, yeah. So what in what ways can we, number 3, the church faithfully defend religious freedom for all while avoiding alignment with political movements that tie with national identity to one faith? I don't think that's hard, is it? Advocate all you want for what you believe, right? Write letters, organize. But it's when the people who are making the decisions are the ones organizing and that have an agenda that is purely Christian and sometimes purely white. It's a little bit scary. So we need to, figure out how to listen compassionately. We need to figure out how to teach our children and our youth how to distinguish between loving their country and conflating the gospel with a political ideology. There's a lot of Gen Z evangelicals who didn't realize that you could be a Democrat and Christian, like that they didn't realize that there wasn't a joining of church and state like that. Until they broaden their horizons, right? They got education to see that they're not one and the same. That's especially true among younger people. Anyway, so how do we as Lutherans respond faithfully to current events? So vote. That's the first thing, right? Vote and tell other people to vote. That's the most powerful weapon that we have. It's not even a weapon, it's a tool, right? That we have. So vote and then speak out. You don't have to do it violently, right? Just speak out. Because as Tim was just saying, who gets to speak for Christianity? As Christian nationalists? Because that's who's speaking for Christianity right now. Like I said, we don't have as loud of a voice, not even anywhere as close, but we have a better message. We have a better message. And integrity to back it up. We do. Engage in education and study and congregational conversation. Thank you for coming to this class. But there's articles and blogs and books and news media. Just pay attention, right? Broaden your horizons and pay attention. Because if we're not paying attention, I am paying attention and preparing for this class. There were things that I was like connecting the dots to that I hadn't connected the dots to, because the dots aren't very close together, but they're there when you look for them. That, oh my gosh, look what's happening. This is scary. It's happening. And then people like me are like, it's happening. And other people are like, what's happening? Because they don't see it. And so they don't want to see it either, right? Who wants to see it? What? Our society is going to what in a handbasket? What? Nah. I need to go get another value meal at McDonald's. No, we don't want to. We want to stick our heads in the sand too long, or we want to be told what to believe. So engage and study. There's a resource list I gave you guys, and understand both sides of an argument, right? Both sides of an argument. And then lead with love in your life, right? Lead with love. Even and maybe especially with people we disagree with. Because if it's not love, it's not from God. So if you see hatred, jealousy, envy, racism and injustice, call it out. Right? I don't agree with you. Right? I don't agree with you. You don't have to yell at them, but I don't agree with you. I think Jesus was about loving your neighbor, and that doesn't sound very loving to me. And you're not going to, but it's not an argument, right? There's not an argument to win there, but so be respectful when you disagree, because that's about love also, right? So this is about not only about the future of our country, it's about the future of our religion, right? It's about the future of Christianity. Practice relational, grace-filled engagement. So ask questions rather than accuse, right? Don't yell. We don't get anywhere yelling. Yelling is not talking. It's not conversing. Listen for underlying fears or identities or concerns, and build trust with someone before you challenge them, right? Build trust with them. Center the voices of the marginalized. So we need to, as Bonhoeffer would say, the outcast, the suspects, the maltreated, the powerless, the oppressed and reviled. That's who Jesus went to. And Bonhoeffer lifted up the Sermon on the Mount as the way we should live. And the Sermon on the Mount is about sacrifice, and it's about love, and it's about caring. It starts out with the Beatitudes. So it's about reaching out to those who are on the margins and respecting them. Faithful response includes standing with communities harmed by Christian nationalism, like immigrants, religious minorities, LGBTQ people, Black and brown communities. Naming how Christian nationalism is often tied to white supremacy, and advocating for policies that protect vulnerable neighbors, which we should be doing anyway. We should be advocating for policies that protect vulnerable neighbors. All right, we're a little bit over, but I'm here for questions and concerns. The 3 questions at the end there, those are for you. Think about those, take it home, think about those questions. There's lots more you could read, lots more you could do. And there's more coming out all the time. I am hopeful that Christian nationalism has seen its heyday. And after the next election will start declining. Because people are sick of it. Yeah.
I heard I was doing something else, and the TV was on, and some reporters said that he overheard Trump speaking kind of off the cuff, that there was going to be no midterm elections.
Well,
I don't know details, but
He's sure trying, isn't he?
so if you can't win an election, cheat, right? I mean, watch for it. It's we're changing all the boundaries, right? Both parties, but Trump started it. He started it, but started it in Texas, right? This is a mess. It's a mess. And also, if Black and brown people don't vote for you, let's find ways to not let them vote.
Yeah.
If women don't vote for you, let's find ways so that it's harder for them to vote. And if I want to sow doubt in my believers, I'm going to seize elections stuff from 2020 election.
Yeah.
So that I can sow doubt, right? Because all you need is enough, like that much of oh, maybe that is true. Or if you want to believe it, oh, well, see, there you go. Because that's what you want to believe. It's not, it happens in politics all the time, but I'm really, I am hopeful that this, it's just ugly. It's ugly. It feels ugly, right? It feels ugly. And I hope it goes away. The ugliness can go away and the love can come back again. Just very hopeful of that. So Pastor Katie and I'll keep preaching love and teaching love. And you and all of us will just keep living love. And together, maybe we can change the world. So, yeah. Thank you. We're over.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm around if you have questions or comments. Thank you. Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you.
Wow.